anything?
No.
It did record
No,
it.
but this is the button.
All right, okay.
That was
Did it record?
yeah.
Okay, should we start?
Yeah. So,
Okay, so just wrapping up, my question was essentially some people don't want to support political prisoner campaigns, and they say that they're worried that they could be criminalised. How would you respond to that? And also, people often say to me, Nadia, what's the tangible kind of form of support that you offer as a political prisoner campaigner? Well, actually, there's many ways to respond to that question, and because you're very experienced, I want to know, experienced in the movement, I want to know what advice and outcomes have resulted of, have actually, what outcomes as a result of political campaigning has assisted political prisoners' liberation, and why is political campaigning important? Because, the work you and I do is important, and I just wanted to see what your convincing argument would be.
Well, first of all, for the poorest and most oppressed workers, they will be reluctant to struggle at most times, and they won't support causes that put them in danger until they feel themselves in danger, and there's a political change in the situation. And they decide to fight themselves, then they will support many causes in those circumstances. And if you look at the periods where the struggle in Ireland or the struggle, international struggles, have got big support, it is when people have been deciding to fight for their own cause, and then they draw the wider picture. I have to say that the biggest political step forward we have made has been on the question of when we every year we would bring our motions to the Labour Representation Committee's annual general meeting. Now, the Labour Representation Committee is a sort of left of the Labour Party movement, but it also contains many other groupings that aren't in the Labour Party, for instance, like the New Communist Party and ourselves. And on the question of the anti-imperialist motions that we would put in support of Irish Republican prisoners, we would put them every year, and every year they were passed. Now, the importance of that was that both Jeremy Corbyn and John MacDonald were leaders of that, and they voted for these motions. And having voted for these motions then, of course they are now abandoning that political stance as far as possible. But I have the minutes of those meetings, and I'm now able to remind them of what they once said and what they once did. It is the reason that we find it very important to try and access the movements of the labour movement where you get a big response. For instance, I will say openly now, one of the organisations that is part of the Labour Representation Committee is called the Alliance for Workers' Liberty. That is a notorious pro-Zionist organisation, and one year in moving the motion in support of the political prisoners, what they said to me was, look, we suspect that you're not just looking for the democratic rights of these political prisoners. We suspect that you actually support their political aims. And I said in answer, well, I have to confirm your worst suspicions at this point. I tell you that I actually do support their political aims. However, that's not what the motion says. The motion merely calls for support for their democratic rights as prisoners, and that they be treated fairly and be given political status. And on that basis, the motion passed overwhelmingly, as it did every other year. What will happen this year, I don't know. The conference is moved for October. I have been suspended from this organisation as well, charged with anti-Semitism, but they had 42 days to present the charges, and 49 days have now passed since, and they haven't presented the charges against me. So I'm I'm now about to consult my solicitor to
Yeah.
demand my rights. I was publicly slated as an anti-Semite, and this was put out on the Twitter feed by a number of people, and in my view, that is just totally unacceptable. I hear that
It's disgusting.
it is absolutely disgusting,
Especially
and
considering you're, you know, look, there's many people out there, including like the likes of Jeremy Corbyn, who claim to be a supporter of Palestinian liberation. So you know, if anything, he really needs to grow a backbone, and so do the others. But as far, I wouldn't worry. I think it's added to your street credibility.
well, maybe it has in some areas. But I would, in relation, I would say that the president of Israel, who nobody remembers his name, but anyway, he's got to speak on the name of Israel. He said that there was two forms of anti-Semitism that Jewish people were now facing. There was the right-wing anti-Semitism in Eastern Europe and the left-wing anti-Semitism in the British Labour Party. Now, the right-wing anti-Semites of Eastern Europe, of course, are out-and-out fascists. They think that the Holocaust was a great thing and they'd like to do it again and like to kill every leftist they could get hold of. And publicly say so. They fly the flags of the Nazi collaborator Stefan Bandera, and are proud to be called fascists, and have committed heinous acts against their opponents. There's nobody at all remotely like that within the British Labour Party. This left-wing anti-Semitism thing is a complete bogus campaign, ultimately intended to get rid of Corbyn himself, of course, and foolishly he goes along with it and he accepts it. He has set up an inquiry now that basically accepts that it's a problem. No, it's not the problem. The problem within the British Labour Party is the Labour Friends of Israel and the what used to be Pole Zion, which is the Jewish Labour movement, who are part of the Jewish Labour Party, who actually carried out the Nakba themselves in 47-48 and kept the Palestinians under martial law for 18 years afterwards. These are the racist monsters who are now actually charged with educating the British Labour Party about anti-Semitism. Now, it is an outrage beyond belief, in my view.
It's ironic. But relating back to your, it's the prison support group, isn't it, that you set up?
Yes.
So in relation to this, what tangible form of support have you offered? How do we approach this kind of question if asked? Tangible support.
Tangible forms. I don't know. We have managed to, as I say, to gain influence in certain sections of the Labour movement. We have had organised our pickets and our demonstrations and public meetings. We have got many letters from the prisoners themselves expressing their pleasure and solidarity with what we're doing. So therefore we keep the movement going. It's not a very powerful movement at the moment. I'm not pretending that it is. But nonetheless, it does. Sorry?
It's quite disenfranchised, because I was quite surprised, because when I was in Ireland, I expected it to still be very strong, considering the number of detainees still incarcerated. You know, here in British prisons as well as Northern Ireland and elsewhere. But I was quite surprised that the movement was as strong as it used to be. Why could that be then?
Well, it's strong on occasions. I mean, I would say that say mobilisations in Dublin on occasions. On recent occasions have been quite big and quite strong, but the Good Friday Agreement and what is said about the Good Friday Agreement, that it has stopped all this killings and bombings, etc. That is still seen as a plus, and therefore to oppose the Good Friday Agreement by saying, well, of course we don't support the bombing of civilian areas or assassinating individual people of that nature. people think that that's what you want to bring back. And until the movement itself develops in the north of Ireland, which it will inevitably do, because the actual Good Friday Agreement is based on a sectarian head count, and the sectarian head count makes legitimate the loyalist supremacy, that they are supremacists. They actually think they're better than you. They think they're entitled to more privileges than you, and if they see you advance, our nationalists advancing in any way against them, they're absolutely outraged with their taking our privileges off it. They didn't want the sons and daughters, for instance, of nationalist workers to be educated properly, because that would mean threatening their jobs and threatening their positions. It's a vile reactionary ideology, and to equate it with the national aspirations of the right to self-determination, which is basically based on equality and not supremacy. You know, when a nation fights for its national liberation, what it wants is equality with everybody else, so that we're as good as you. You know, and and when our football team wins a match, that, you know, that means our people are as good as your people, etc., etc. That's equality, and to be told that no, you're not entitled to that if you're a Palestinian in Israel, or if you're a nationalist in Ireland, or if you're a black person in South Africa, or in the days gone by, or in the deep south of America. And by the way, those are the four movements that are closest ideologically and politically together historically, with those four. That it's a compromise that cannot last.